Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, rather had fun,
Right.
Right. Here's the thing. Foreign substances, if you're going to use that, why wouldn't you do that after testing?
Yeah.
So my take here is I think Andrei's paddle failed testing. And that's basically what happened. That's how I see this. His paddle failed testing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care whether it failed testing for a foreign substance, for delamination, for too much grit. A paddle failed. I don't think that, and you can say that the intent was the intent was there more obviously to cheat by putting a foreign substance on. First off, I don't think you would do that intentionally for testing. I don't think you would run a paddle with foreign substance through testing. So to say the intent as a competitor playing against Andrei, I don't care whether you intend or don't intend to cheat. I don't care whether you have a foreign substance on it. I don't care whether it is too spinny. I don't care whether it is too poppy. If it fails, it fails to me as the person that Andrei would potentially be playing against, right? It seems to me like paddle testing worked, right? It caught an illegal paddle before it went into competition. And now the other players who are using a paddle that might be too spinny or a paddle that might be too powerful, they have the option to just say, well, I didn't know. My manufacturer made it. Like, it's their problem, right? I mean, we've heard these stories of players bringing in 20 paddles where one or two of them will pass. Like, I don't think that this should be all that different. Now, had Andrei passed a paddle and then put tacky stuff on afterwards, which if he was cheating, that's what he should have done, right? If that's what he was cheating, that's the way that you would do it. I think then he should be tar and feathered. I don't think 50K in 6 months is enough, or whatever it is, 2 months, 60 days. I think he should be tar and feathered if that's the case, if you manipulate it afterwards. So I guess on one hand, I like to see that they're taking this very seriously. I do think that it's a pretty stark departure from the way that previous failed paddles had been treated.
They're definitely dropping the hammer and making a statement.
Yeah.
So, did you see my tweet on it?
I don't know if I did. What was your tweet?
This was my take, based on nothing other than me just thinking, why would they make it such a significant fine? Like, what is the logic in that, right? So, the way, and this is, you can see this tweet, but I said, $50,000 fine is shocking, but I interpret it as UPA isn't just fining the player, they're fining the brand. Now, my presumption there is the paddle manufacturer typically would pay the fine for the player, especially in a case where you have certain manufacturers, their paddles are failing over and over again. The player is bearing the risk, right? So in this effort, UPA knows that if the paddle brand is going to be paying the fine, then we need to fine them to a degree that it makes a dent to the manufacturer, right? If the fine isn't substantial, the brand can justify taking more risk to push the limits of paddle technology beyond what is reasonable. And a mere slap on the wrist could be viewed as the cost of doing business. In many cases, we've seen illegal paddles actually benefit brand sales. A fine effectively becomes a marketing expense. For a $280 paddle, which is how much that Proton paddle cost, and a lot of the Selkirk paddles, Yolas, a brand would only need to sell about 180 additional paddles to cover the $50K fine, ignoring manufacturing costs. UPA is putting a stake in the ground. Skirting the rules will cost you. It sucks that it happened this way, an illegal substance, and it sucks it happened to Andrei of all people, but all parties directly involved believe the fine is justified, especially in the wake of rampant abuse of paddle regulations. Most pickleballers agree paddle tech is getting out of hand. This is a move in the right direction to rein it back in. Does anybody see it differently? I didn't see many counter takes. Even Andrei, Proton, they're saying, we accept the fine. His paddle failed. Regardless of how that happened, the paddle failed. we accept the fine and the punishment, right? What do you think of that take?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's clearly a statement, right? However, this is probably the one time where the paddle manufacturer should be left completely out of it,
Yeah.
right?
Well, that's why I said it's like weird that this is the instance where they dropped the hammer.
Right. Because
But-
this is the time where the paddle manufacturer could really be like, our paddle was fine,
Right.
and then they put this stuff on it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Everybody else's paddle who fails is given to them directly from the manufacturer, unless somebody's back there smacking it with a lacrosse ball or whatever to delaminate the paddle. That's not a. This is like the most clear example of something that's not the paddle manufacturer's problem.
Right. The $50,000 fine is insane.
That's a lot of money.
Right?
That's
crazy.
Of money. Although Dre's had a pretty good run so far this year. He's been doing pretty well.
In the backdrop of what players are making, $50,000 is a crap load, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a guy on the Rangers, NHL, just got a $5K fine for a hit in the playoffs where he like really could have like ended this guy's career, right? That's $5,000 fine. Draymond Green has a history of fines, obviously. He has like over 50 fines, which like going to this list is very fun. But they're all like 2,000, 15,000, 3,000, 2,000, 2,000, 2,000. Like 50,000 is crazy and reserved for very significant events, right? Very significant violations, typically like putting people at risk or, damaging their reputation. So,
Yeah. So, all right, you're UPA, PPA, MLP. What do you do? Andrei submits this paddle. It's got a foreign substance on it. What do you do with that?
I draw a line in the sand. I don't care what the nuance is, right? I don't care about the description of he didn't mean to submit that one or, he never intended to play with it. That doesn't matter to me. If the paddle is illegal and we're trying to curb all the issues with paddle manufacturing, we're going to come down hard and swift and we're going to make a statement. And I think this just happened to be the next event where they could do that.
Mm-hmm. So, what is your action? Are you doing the same thing? Are you fining him $50K and suspending him?
I assume there were a lot of internal conversations and a lot of issues. Like, I bet they had tons of meetings where they were like, this paddle stuff is getting out of hand. We have to do something. We have to make a statement, right? So in the backdrop of that, I understand why it's so significant. I don't see a world where I would issue a $50,000 fine unless I'm specifically thinking about the paddle manufacturer who could potentially be the one fronting the cost of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think the $50,000 fine is so significant, because they know that if it's $2,000, well, I'm a paddle manufacturer. I'm happy to pay $2,000 if it means my player's going to have a competitive advantage. That's great for our brand.
Gotcha. There's just so many questions and not too many great answers here, right? It's just now a third thing that we need to look at in testing: foreign substance, delamination, and texture, right? And all of them are tested in a slightly different way. I think we do need to have post-match testing again. I think you need to play. I think you have to have your paddle tested beforehand. I think you have to have your paddle tested afterwards, right? To me, I could theoretically get my paddle passed and go put whatever crap on it that I want, foreign substance, and you can't challenge the paddle afterwards.
Do the lacrosse ball thing, delam it, scratch it up with a quarter to add some grit.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think we got to test it, or at least have the challenge option back afterwards again.
Let me just read some comments, because I think we're both inclined to give Andrei the benefit of the doubt here. But if you don't have context on who he is or the situation generally, so one of the comments was, anytime something shady occurs with pickleball paddle testing, in quotes, submitted the wrong paddle. Oops, right? That's the common excuse. So I can see where that guy is coming from, right? But I think you and I are in agreement that Andrei is not the one who's going to be trying to skirt the rules and play with some sort of illegal advantage.
Or either that, or he's just not that stupid.
This episode is also brought to you by Pickleball Match Tracker, which is just a great gift for pickleball junkies, but especially for pickleball dads for Father's Day. The Pickleball Match Tracker is brought to you by Adams Media and Trey Sizemore, who's the founder of pickleballhut.com. And it includes like the history of the game, glossary of pickleball slang and terms. It's got sections to record scores, rate skills, capture intricacies of match day like wind, weather, challenging plays, and match highlights. And it's just a great gift for the pickleball junkie in your life, so check them out. It's the Pickleball Match Tracker. You can look at the link in the description or on the screen here.
I'm not gonna lie, rather had